Hello there, welcome to my channel. I'm Angela from artofeye.com. Today I'm going to be looking at watercolouring with your inks using different kinds of paper. Watercolour paper, both sides textured and smooth. Some 300 GSM paper or cardstock. Some 250 GSM cardstock. And if I have time, some 200 GSM cardstock, just to see how they all fare with the watercolours. I'm going to be using water-based dye inks. They work the best for this technique. I'm going to use various stamps, some lined stamps, some silhouette stamps, solid stamps. I'm not going to use all of the ones that you see here. It's just basically to try out a few different stamps using this technique, and I'm going to be using watercolour brushes as well. I'm going to start off by using the textured side of this watercolour cardstock. I think it's just some cheap watercolour cardstock from the works, but I'm going to be using this lined stamp. So for this first example, I'm actually going to use embossing powder. I'm going to use white embossing powder because the first time I tried this I used clear embossing powder and I couldn't really see where I was colouring. I couldn't see the lines or anything and it went a bit haywire. I'll show you that later. So I'm going to use white embossing powder for this stamp, and hopefully I should be able to colour in the lines a little bit better. Honestly, I'm like a child. I usually forget to use the anti-static powder when I'm embossing, but I managed to remember this time. I'm also going to use my Sizzix heat tool. It's got two settings and I absolutely love this heat tool. It's the favourite one. It's the best one I've ever had. I really love it. So that doesn't take long, and you can see that the white shows through beautifully on the watercolour card, so hopefully it shouldn't be too difficult to colour with. This was my very first attempt. As you can see, I couldn't really see where I was colouring and I went out of the lines a little bit. Some people do like that effect, a messy watercolour effect, but I'm going to try better this time. So you can see I've chosen my ink, I've got my water brush ready. So what I'm going to do is just lay a little bit of ink down onto my glass mat. And I'm just going to squeeze some water into the ink and just give it a bit of a mix. And then I'm just going to start colouring with that and just see what happens. Well, that hasn't turned out too badly, but I am going to dry it with my heat tool just to save a bit of time really. I'm also going to attempt to clean up where I've gone out of the edges just by using water and a brush. It doesn't turn out horribly, but it could have been better. But that's the way you can. The thing with watercolours is that you can just use water and a cloth or a tissue just to try and clean up the bits that have gone out. But I think the beauty of watercolouring is that sometimes it looks nice, messy, so you don't have to be perfect. So here's the one that I did earlier. I tried it with a clear and like I said, it didn't work. So I tried the gold embossing powder this time, and it meant I didn't have to colour the stems or the stalks or anything in. I could just colour the petals, and I think it turned out okay. So all I did for the background basically was just brush on a little bit of very, very light colouring of blue, just to give it a little bit of interest, just to take away from that starkness of the clear background. You can also lay down a stamp using pigment ink. Pigment ink is not going to react with the water, so you're not going to get any streaking, or it's not going to bleed in to the watercolouring that you're going to do. So pigment ink takes a while to dry, so I'm going to use my heat tool to dry it off. So what I'm going to do is use my low-tack tape, not only to tape the cardstock to the desk, but it also gives it a nice little border for when I come to do the background. So I'm just going to go through the same process again of colouring using my dye ink, a different colour this time. Again, I'm just going to use a very light covering of ink for the background, and then I'm going to peel off the tape and you can see the end result. As you can see, I had quite a bit of clean up to do on this because I went out of the edges I don't know how many times. So one of these was done on the textured side of the watercolour card and one was done on the smooth side. I'm not sure which is your favourite. I think I prefer the textured side myself. Now for this next technique, I'm going to use quite a few different colours of the dye ink, and I'm going to be trying it out on the 300 GSM cardstock just to see how it holds up. So you never know, you might not have to buy any expensive watercolour paper. All I'm going to be doing for this is just literally laying down big splodges, big stripes on the paper. Can't be easier, and yet it gives a really nice effect. So it's just stripes of any colour that you like, just lay them down however you like. They don't have to be diagonal, they can be straight, they can be any colour, just do you. Again, I'm going to dry off the card using my heat tool, and what I'm going to do this time, I'm not going to be painting anything, you'd be pleased to know. What I'm going to do is just use my stamping platform and some pigment ink and just stamp a nice big flower stamp on top of this, and basically that's it. That's all there is to this technique. There we are. Couldn't be simpler, could it? And I just think it looks really, really nice, and I will be turning this into a card at the end of this video, so do stay tuned. I actually decided to use a scalloped frame die just to cut out the middle of it because I didn't want to use the whole thing on the card. I thought it would be too big. I actually did try using a card, as you can see, with this technique, but I made the mistake of embossing the inked panel, and I wished that I hadn't because I think it looks nice just with the inking. So I won't make the same mistake with this one. I'll just leave it as it is with the ink and the stamp, and I won't mess any more with the background. So for this next technique, it is best to use a solid stamp rather than a lined one, but you can try both if you want. With this technique, you actually go to stamp as normal. You put your stamp onto an acrylic block, load the stamp with ink, and then spray water onto the stamp and then stamp it onto the card. I said stamp far too many times there. But that's just another way to do it, to get a bit of a watercolour look. I didn't have much success with this, but you can try it if you like, just to see if you have any better results. It's an effect. I'm not sure what you think about it, but I forgot to mention that this is the 250 GSM cardstock, and as you can see, I mean, it hasn't gone right through, so it is definitely still usable. So these are just a few things that you can do to use your dye inks as watercolours. Don't look at that one. I made a bad mistake by using a dye ink on top of a dye ink. It just went everywhere. So what I'm going to do now is turn a couple of these into cards, and I'll be right back to show you my attempt. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If you like, I would really appreciate also you liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting. Anything like that would really help my channel. So thank you so much for any support that you give me. I really, really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye now.